Hey guys, it's Ken here from shop3d.ca. Today I have a special guest with me. That, of course, is the brand new Formlabs Form. Also, we have Cha here as well from our tech department, who's very excited to unbox this amazing new printer. So let's get to it. So I have with me on this side the new build platform for the Form 4. Tank mixer, I'll explain this in a moment. The new version 2 of the Form Wash, and the power cord.
So I have the new resin tank for the Form 4 and also the version 5 resins in the newly designed resin cartridge.
Okay, so it wasn't very productive for us to bring everything up here. We're gonna need some space to unbox this beast over here. So we're gonna take everything off and start installing each of the components on the Form 4. All right, Cha, so let's do it. This box is 40 pounds, but let's see what's inside.
All right.
Wow. That's awesome.
Very cool.
Goodbye foam.
Ooh. The cover. Should we remove the foam first? Should we pull it out?
Okay, let's do
cover.
it.
Shiny. Wow. Oh yeah.
Look at that.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but this definitely looks bigger than the Form 3 over there.
I love the fact that it's bigger. Like right away you can tell the build volume is bigger. The camera module is really cool.
It's kind of got the retro Form 2 vibe because you get the screen on that side over there.
Right.
And the color scheme is, you know, very Form 2-like. Yep. So it's kind of like going back on its history a little bit.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I think we should get into some of the details. Of course, the big thing for the Form 4 is that it's going to be a lot faster than the Form 3, 2 to 5 times faster, depending on what you're printing. And that's because we have a brand new LPU, and it's now DLP instead of a laser.
Yeah.
And what does that mean, Cha, in terms of like technicals? Like, why is it faster?
So the reason why it's faster is it's using a LED array, having that light structured and projected through the LPU unit at the very top here. And that's going to be our curing mechanism. So there's no mechanical movement anymore of the laser and the LPU system on the Form 3. And that will dramatically speed things up.
Not to mention that it's very high-powered DLP now. So we're gonna be curing resins a lot faster as well. Why don't we install some of the accessories and then we can point out some of the cool new features of the system after we install those accessories.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that I noticed right away is we now have a power switch.
Yeah, and we'll flip it around so you guys can see what the back looks like as well. So in the back here, we got an Ethernet port, a USB-C, you got the power. I got
the power core connector here and the very appreciated power switch.
Yes. Over here, there's actually a little vent that you can attach a hose to and vacuum out fumes if you feel like that's something that's required for your facility. But it is optional and you can just kind of put that back.
Okay.
I also want to show you guys over here as well that you can pull this little tab out and you're actually going to get your Allen keys for the adjustment of all of your bolts and nuts in this machine. So all of your tools are actually here and attached. And there's also some shims on the inside of this as well. So you can access shims for this printer, and it's all in this little handy tool section. Sorry, I put it backwards.
Yeah. So just to sort of elaborate on that, these tools are basically used to create the parallelism between the build plate and the LPU unit. Formlabs has made it much easier in terms of replacing the LPU unit, but during the process of installation, you do want to make sure that the LPU is parallel with your build plate surface, and these are basically the tools you use to help with that. One other thing I wanted to point out, and we're going to have to sort of tilt the machine back a little bit, and hopefully our viewers can sort of see this. is that there is a very large fan on the bottom. So as Ken had pointed out earlier, that this is a very powerful light source that Formlabs put into this machine in order to have the speed in production, which also means it requires a large cooling module, which is on the bottom. So it is recommended to put this printer on top of a hard surface due to you don't want to insulate the temperature and you want this fan to draw in very cool air.
Yeah, so don't put it on top of carpet. And before we put it back, you can see that the feet here are screw in and screw out so that you can properly level this printer. Just like previous Formlabs printers, you can adjust the feet so that it's perfectly level with the surface that you're using.
Perfect. Settle down.
And finally, just one small note, and this is mainly for Canadians, but it does have the ETL certification here in the back. It's a CETL US certification, which means it's electrically certified in Canada, good for use and legal to use in all institutions in Canada.
Yeah.
All right, Cha, so let's install some of the accessories and then we can plug it in.
Okay, sounds good.
So a couple of important things. You know, we do have some new accessories for the Form 4. That's a little bit different than the Form 3. The build platform is a new build platform. It's a Form 4 build platform, which is not compatible with the Form 3 build platform. And as you can see and already tell, it's actually quite a bit wider than the Form 3. And that's a big deal because this means that this printer's build volume is 22% wider on the x-axis and up to 30% bigger than the Form 3. So it's a big deal, and although we have to use a new build platform, I think a 30% increase in build volume is definitely worth it. What do you
it's
think?
appreciated, for sure.
So how do we put this one in, Joe?
Yeah, so you'll see we'll lift the hood. And this gives me a chance to talk about the new locking mechanism on the Form 4. It is no longer a dovetail, but a locking bolt that you'll see at the center here. And then on the back, there is a almost like a button that decompresses, which indicates that the build platform is locked in and ready to go. What I think we'll do first is actually I think we're a little rushing it, but let's turn this on, eh? Because we've got some power. There we go.
It's working. Cha, it's working.
Okay.
Just takes a second to boot up.
Okay.
The one thing is when you do start using your Form 4 for the first time, the screen is going to give you all the instructions on what to do in terms of setup. We're just a little bit excited, so we want to put all the accessories together. But let's talk about some of the accessories as we unbox them. So while Cha is unboxing the new resin tank, which again is unfortunately not compatible with the Form 3, but it is specifically made for the Form 4 and the new technology, LFD, in the Form 4. We're going to show you, some of the differences in a second. But in terms of the resin tank, it's weird, but you kind of get the tank mixer separately in a box now. So this is going to be a separate SKU. Now, we used to get a resin tank mixer in the Form 2, if you recall, and that came with each resin tank. But now it's actually a separate piece. This is a much more complicated self-locking resin mixer, and it's going to move 5-10 times faster than the previous version on the Form 2. So it's a big deal. And you can actually buy this separately. So you can get a couple of these if you want, or you can reuse the same one for different resins if you're using different standard resins, for example. So Cha, why don't we show what the new resin tank looks like?
Yeah. Okay. So the new resin tank will look something like this. The thing that will be different is going to be the film at the very bottom of the tank. Now it's going to be very taut against the tank, as what we're accustomed to on the Form 3. Something else to note is that the tank is now using an RFID to identify with the Form 4. And on the Form 4, there's going to be magnetic sensors that indicate once the tank is locked into position. Okay, so we'll put that there. So you're gonna see here, there are two handles on the left and right side to hold the new tank inside the system. There's also magnets around the lid, which will tell the system that the components are set in.
Now, Cha did mention that it's a different film at the bottom of the resin tank, and that's actually a very important point as well, because this new film lasts much longer than the previous version on the Form 3. So in the previous version of the Form 3, there was like a day number of life that you can have for different types of resins. Some were more abrasive on the tank, and some made the tank didn't last quite as long. Now it's going to be the same for all of the resins, and actually the life of the tank is going to be extended by quite a bit. So over 190, almost 200 prints before you might need to change the tank out. And for some people who are printing a lot, that might actually mean that you can use it for almost half a year to a full year before you need to change a resin tank out. So one, that's going to be a big deal because you're going to save a lot from not switching tanks all the time. And secondly, the best part of all, the cost of each tank has now decreased. So the course of running your Form 4 is actually going to cost you less and give you a better ROI than running the Form 3.
So the next step, we have the tank loaded. The next thing I'm going to do is put the built plate in and also install the wiper. So let's get the build plate in there, and we'll get the wiper. So the wiper has a locking mechanism. You see over here, you want to make sure to release the latch, insert the wiper, and then lock the wiper in. And that should have the system ready. And the only thing left to do is to open up the new package of the resin cartridge.
So I want to talk a little bit about this wiper and some of the new sensors and features that are on the Form 4. So the wiper actually will have detection if it hits something along the resin tank. So if you do have a failure and something sticks to that film, as the wiper comes across and it detects that it hit something, it'll actually pause the print for you and let you know that it's hit something. So that's a smart feature of this. And of course, if you've noticed, when we do open the lid, Cha, that there's a module over here. So this module is going to be the brand new camera inside of the Form 4. So we didn't have a camera on the Form 3. Cha, why don't you tell us about what this camera can do and also the other sensor on there?
Yeah, sure. So I'll talk about both modules that are sort of mounted in this position now. So one, as you mentioned, is a camera. The camera does a couple of things. The camera is able to now live stream the print through Formlabs Preform. And the other sensor on here is an ultrasonic resin level detection. Basically, it bounces ultrasonic sound, and then a receiver will, depending on how long it takes for the receiver to pick up its signal, will signal the resin height. So these are both changes from the design from previous generations.
And now, once I've opened the resin cartridge, I think you'll notice that this is also another big change coming to the Form 4 lineup. The resin cartridge shape is completely different. So it's a much more bottle-like instead of a cartridge-like versus the Form 3. And there's quite a few benefits that are included in this. So first of all, as we slide it down the back, one of the biggest complaints we have in terms of the Form 3 resin cartridges was that it took so long for it to fill up the tank. And it was even worse for the 3L. But with the new Form 4, it actually fills about 10 times faster than the Form 3 did. So you're gonna get resin in there much more quickly. You no longer have to open the spout and pour it in ahead of time if it was empty in order to start your print. So everything is kind of focused around speed for the Form 4, and this is another big factor for it to kind of speed things up and improve the process and improve the workflow and the ease of use for this printer.
Yeah, so the engineers at Formlabs went in to design the hexagonal valve on the cartridge, as well as the mechanisms that drive the bite valve. Both have been improved and dramatically increased the resin fill rate. Another thing that they also did was that these cartridges are now RFID, so they are no longer using the EEPROM, and you know, I personally welcome the change.
Yeah, and actually I'm going to take it out, Chubb, before it starts filling, but as you can see, this is new. It's gray V5. Now, we've been using gray V4 and black and standard V4 for quite a long time on the Form 3 and Form 2, and that's been a great resin, a great standard resin all around, but V5 improves on that in a lot of characteristics. So it's actually going to be stronger, it's actually going to produce better detail, and on top of all of that, it's cheaper. So,
yeah,
you know, it's pretty much improved in every way. I would say the new gray V5 is probably pretty close to what the Gray Pro was for the Form 3, but now you get that in a cheaper, more standardized cartridge. And notably, the black V5 is actually going to be tremendously improved.
Oh, okay.
I've seen it. It's a big deal. I think black was one of the least popular resins you know, before in the Form 3 era,
yep.
But now in the Form 4 era, I think it's going to do really, really well because the performance and the characteristics of black V5 are pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about trying this gray out. So I think that Formlabs engineering team has spec'd out that, you know, the amount of robustness of the final part is actually stronger than the Gray Pro, and because of that, the hard edges on the print should be much better coming off of this printer. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
I think it's going to compare very favorably to other technical engineering resins in, you know, different brands out there. I think that was probably one of the more weaker sides of the Form 3 in terms of the standard resin and how hard it was. But now we've seen an improvement in all of those areas, and notably speed as well, because this resin is going to print quite a bit faster.
And I mean, the cost itself drives down your cost per part. So, you know, it's a win all around, I think.
So Cha, why don't, before we dispense resin in there and start our first print, can you tell me a little bit about what makes it go faster? Tell me about the light processing unit and what we got in the Form 4 versus the Form 3.
Yeah, so there is a array of 60 LEDs starting from the bottom here. And then that array goes through a light processor, which is basically like a structures the light wave so that it's coming up straight instead of on an angle on a projector, and then passes through an LED panel, and the LED basically allows the pattern of light to shine through, which creates your model layer by layer. So that is the new system now. And that is because of the power of the LEDs, the amount of power that this thing outputs will form your layers much, much faster. And because there's no moving parts aside from the wiper itself, this is what allows this machine to, you know, print. Your average prints are going to be less than 2 hours, less than, you know, 2.5 hours. And that's improvement in speed is a very welcome change, I think, for a lot of users. And
in terms of, you know, just looking at ROI and cost per part, it's actually going to decrease because most of your consumables have decreased in price in terms of a longer running tank that costs less, resin that's better that costs less, and it's going to be faster. So I think overall you're going to use less power, you're going to spend less time per part, you're going to spend less labor per part, and all of your consumables have now decreased. So we're going to see quite a bit of an improvement in ROI for each piece that's been printed.
Yeah, And on a not so serious note, it's always cool to see, your model grow out of this vat live, and just, layer by layer watch it grow is I think is very interesting. It's going to be very interesting.
Now, I was at the keynote event for the launch of the Form 4, and during the keynote speech, which was an hour long, there was actually 16 build plates worth of stuff that printed during that 1 hour as a demo that they were doing. So if you haven't checked it out, make sure you see Max's keynote speech during that time and all of the build plates being printed while he was doing his keynote speech. I do want to talk a little bit about the airflow management in the Form 4. The engineers at Formlabs have done a tremendous job in doing that. So as we saw earlier when we flipped it up, that there was a big fan in the back. And what you may not have seen is that airflow, there are actually intake vents on the side. So you'll actually have a lot of air coming in through the side and out through the side as well. And that helps keep everything cool. And as the air comes in, it also gets filtered so that we don't get dust throughout the LPU as well. So really, really well thought out.
Okay. Yeah, so there are some things we'll sort of talk about that's not so evident when you open the box. So I'll talk about the Z-axis here. So on the Z-axis now, at the top here, there are 4 screws, and these 4 screws are now used to create the parallelism between the build plate and the LPU unit. So this is another sort of setting that you got to dial in if you do an LPU replacement. Not really necessary when it's open box, but I want you guys to know that this is how you sort of change it.
The LPU is user replaceable, so it's not, don't throw out the printer at the end of the life of your LPU. You're going to be able to user replace it. It's going to be quite easy. And in terms of leveling this as well, there's actually 3 degrees of movement for the build platform that can move on here before you use any shims. So if you're off by 3 degrees, you'll probably have to use some shims. But if you're within the 3 degrees tolerance, it will level.
Okay, yeah, that's great. So the next thing I'll talk about is the heater element for the Form 4 is actually built into the LPU. It is on the left and right side of the LCD display, and it will be ceramic heaters that basically warm up the resin to make sure that it is at a viscosity where it's sort of flowing freely and help with even distribution of that resin. And it will be right underneath the resin tank here. So that's another sort of feature of the Form 4.
And I just want to go back to the resin portfolio for a moment, because as you see that we have different cartridges, different size cartridges, it does mean that you can't get any Form 3 resins to print on here because it's using a different cartridge. That being said, all of the resins that are available in the Form 3 will be ported to the Form 4, with the exception of a couple which will be deprecated, because they're no longer going to be that useful now that we have V5 and so forth. So there'll be some resins that will disappear, but mostly you're going to see an improvement. Some versions will be 1.1 versions of those resins.
What I would recommend to customers is if you are existing Formlabs customers, you can go take a look in Preform, and Preform will have some of the resin that are available on the Form 4 already shown there. So usually that's an indication that these are the resins that will come in the new Form 4 cartridges and can be used once you have your unit.
And in terms of power to cure these resins within the Form 4, we actually get almost 16 milliwatts of power from the LCD, and that compares to just like 2 milliwatts for some of the hobbyist printers that you see out there. So that's going to be a big difference in terms of how fast it's curing the resin and what types of resin that we're going to see in the future that requires that much higher energy.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's a lot of light power coming out, and I think that's one of the reasons why they've increased the power output on their power supply unit also in this system.
So Chai, I think we've done a lot of talking. I think we should start our first print, but at the same time, we should also unbox one of our favorite accessories, and which is new, that's going to come with the Form 4.
Oh, yes.
It's not going to come with the Form 4, but it's going to be a new accessory for the Form 4, and that's going to be the new Form Wash version 2.
Ooh, it's bigger.
Yeah, that's going to be the first thing we notice. We get a bigger build platform, so it doesn't fit on the old wash, unfortunately, but we have a new form wash, which does fit the bigger tank. And so let's unbox it. Let's take off the wrap.
Your honors. Ooh. Okay.
So there's actually going to be a couple of brand new features in this version 2, and that you can see there's different lines for how much IPA or solvent for you to put in. You can actually use less IPA than if you're planning to use mainly the bucket underneath, or you can fill it up to the top. And it is a much bigger build volume, which means that there's going to be more IPA, which means that you're going to be able to use it for longer before saturation, so you don't have to change your IPA solvent quite as often. And after we plug it in and start running it up, you'll actually see small little tabs on the back, and that will let you adjust to the build plate that is required. So if you have a Form 3 build plate, which is shorter and not as wide, you can put your little tabs on there and use the Form 3.
Oh, on the inside. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you can use it with the Form 4 and use the outside tabs to hold the wider build platform. There's also different locations. So if you put the blades in the lowest location, then you can, of course, use it with only 1 liter of resin. 7 liters of resin versus 10 or 14. It's really up to you on how you want to use it. If you have some health and safety protocol where you can't have over 10 liters of alcohol, then you can definitely make sure that you use it under that spec. So that's kind of a new feature on the Form Wash version 2.
Ken, do you know if TPM is compatible with this wash?
I believe it is, because it's also a recommended solvent for Formlabs as well.
Okay.
So you can definitely switch it up between IPA and TPM as necessary. And these are the blades that go and hold the build platform, so they kind of just slot in to the back, which we can do now.
Okay.
So again, if you have a mix of Form 3s and Form 4s, then you can use the wide or narrow locking mechanisms for the build platform of your choice. And I've also been told that they've improved the performance of the Form Wash V2 in that the alcohol gets agitated much more.
Yeah,
than
much
the previous
more.
version.
You can see that, previously it was basically a magnet on a mixer, but this is an actual fan that's down here. So
yeah, so it's a much bigger impeller for it to agitate the Form Wash, so it should wash much better. And then you can see that there's also a saturation buoy here for you to test the saturation of the alcohol.
Classic.
This is the power block for the Form Wash version 2, and that's pretty much all you need to know for the version 2. It's not that much different than the version V1. So it really depends. If you're gonna get the Form 4, then it makes a lot of sense to have this unit, because you can put the full build platform in. Now, if you have a Form Wash V1 and you don't feel like upgrading, you really don't have to. You just can't fit the whole build platform in there. So you'll have to take your prints off and put it in the bucket like you would. And you can also keep using your version 1 the same way as well until it dies, and then you can upgrade to the Form Wash V2 as needed. But I think this is pretty much it for the Form Wash version 2. Anything else you'd like to add?
I'm excited to use it. I want to go see some of the stuff on Preform in terms of the new slicing software.
So we're going to be slicing our first print, getting it started, and we'll kind of wrap it up after that.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right, looks like we're all done. Hey Cha, if I were to compare printing this on the Form 3 back there, what would I expect the difference to be after printing with the Form 4?
Oh, well, there's actually a world of difference in terms of speed here. And the thing is, it's not just that this printer is faster. The build plate is actually larger. Because of the size of the build plate, now I can add an extra like 1/3 of the amount of parts that I would have been able to do on the Form 3. And on top of that, to me, as an estimate, as somebody who's printed on the Form 3, I would say this thing is about 3 times faster. So, this completed about an hour and a half. I would say it would have taken the Form 3 somewhere around 3 hours, 3.5 hours or so. And again, because Form 3 has a smaller build plate, you'll end up with less parts. So, I mean, the amount of time savings that you're able to achieve with this machine is incredible.
So on the Form 3, let's say we were able to do maybe 5 sets instead of 7 because of the smaller build plate, and it would take in longer, about 4 hours. We could technically have another run of 7 sets.
Yeah.
So we could be, 10 sets ahead of the, just our previous version back there. So that's a pretty big increase in performance, in speed.
Yeah.
I think it's well appreciated. And I do think that overall the quality looks better to me.
I really like the way the cured resin part, even though, I mean, on this build plate, it's obviously not washed, it's obviously not cured, and we can show that afterwards. But, first impressions, looking at the surface quality, I think this resin is fantastic when it comes to presenting surface quality.
And I do feel that the tolerance for these parts here are excellent. The ratcheting is great for the rosette. Simply an amazing demo part.
Yeah, so I think, the guys at Formlabs did a great job at selecting their demo part to demonstrate some of the robustness of the resin, and second of all, the surface quality of the resin as well. And so for me, as somebody who performs print services here at Shop 3D, I'm really looking forward to putting this machine into our production system and having a workflow around it.
I think this is definitely going to be a workhorse around our showroom for sure. Well, there we have it. We've unboxed it. We've talked about the features of it. We've tested how fast it is, how easy it is to set up, and now we have our successful prints. So I think it's time to wrap it up. I think this was a very good and successful unboxing and first test print.
Yeah.
So if you want to get your Form 4, I think we actually have them in stock in the next couple of days, both in our Mississauga and our Vancouver showroom. So you can walk into each one and see the demos that we have there. Plus, pick up your Form 4 whenever you're ready to. If you're ready to pick it up, just contact us here at shop3d.ca. We'd love to walk you through the differences between the Form 3 and the Form 4, or if you're getting to the Form 4 for the first time, we can walk you through what an SLA system entails. So there we have it. Thanks again for joining Cha and I for this unboxing. Signing off from Shop 3D.
See ya.